Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the AZ Wildcats podcast. And I feel like Floyd in this Mayweather after me and my PHNX boxing cohorts. We did a little bit of punching this morning in a boxing gym. I'll get to that in this podcast as well. But without further ado, I do want to get to our draft expert, Will Gottlieb from CHGO. Check out their draft guide if you're a diehard. But we're going to get into all that. Carter Bryant's mock drafts. What does he look like as a pro? What did Will Gottlieb see at the NBA Combine? He was there. Boots. My brain's all over the place. Workout killed me. It's the AZ Wildcats podcast in 30 seconds. Don't go anywhere. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the AZ Wildcats podcast with our guy, Will Gottlieb today. And no, that is not Damon Dog. He is still on vacation. Parts unknown, places unknown, activities unknown. We'll litigate all that with him on Monday when he returns. But Will, welcome to the podcast. Your first time on the show. Our first time kind of somewhat, meeting in a way. How are you doing? Tell people who you are and, why I brought you on the pod today, because we got a draft expert, folks.
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. I do feel like first time talking, but there's something about the ALLCity family. I just feel like I've known all you guys forever already. So glad to be on and here to talk some Carter Bryant, doing the NBA draft coverage alongside Derek Bodner from PHLY. So we put together a big draft guide that you can access if you're a diehard of any city in our site. Was able to talk to Carter Bryant a little bit this week at the Combine. So very excited about him and potentially seeing where he lands in next month's draft.
Yes, everybody in Arizona has been incredibly excited about Carter Bryant since he stepped on campus. And I kind of wanted to start in general Chicago stuff with you because you are from CHGO. So I'd be remiss to not ask you temperature check on Dalen Terry. How are we feeling about the Arizona alum as a guy who covers the Bulls?
Number one, I absolutely love Dalen Terry as a person. He's been one of the funniest people in the locker room the last 3 years that I've been on the beat. Just like great personality, always very outgoing, charismatic. He's like one of the few people that will like joke around with the media. So he's been a blast to cover. Really enjoyed him. And he took a step forward this year for the Bulls. Did not get a ton of run his first 2 seasons, but kind of started to put some things together. I really actually liked him coming out of the draft. I had him, I think, top 20 on my board then. And it was a bit of a surprise for the Bulls to take him at 18, but big guard who can dribble, pass, defend. The shot is still a work in progress, but he did take some strides there this year. So I'm a Dalen Terry fan and hope to continue to see him grow with the Bulls in the coming years.
And Dalen Terry was a player at Arizona who a lot of fans, thought maybe should return for a sophomore season to really take their game to a more well-rounded place. Now, obviously, Dalen Terry went and secured that bag, and he's got himself an NBA career that he is chasing right now. Carter Bryant, for different reasons, I think is kind of in that same boat. A player who a lot of Arizona fans think it would behoove them to come back for a sophomore season to really iron out the kinks in their game, get those wrinkles out, and become a more well-rounded pro. In the other hand, some people say, go chase that bag now. There's a lot of risk coming back for a sophomore year. Injuries, lack of performance, you name it. Anything can happen when you come back. So as we shift over to Carter Bryant, how do you see him as a pro? And do you think he's one of those players that maybe should come back for a sophomore year? Or do you think he's ready for that next step?
I think he should ride the momentum that he's got right now. I know that may not be what your Wildcat fans want to hear, but I mean, this is a guy who didn't start very many games, only 5, as you guys know, but still managed to shoot 37%. And I think his size, his athleticism, I think he measured 6'6.5" at the Combine with a 6'11" and 3/4 wingspan, 39.5 vertical leap. So very exciting numbers out of the Combine from him. And I think there's a little bit of a risk if he were to go back where, let's say he shoots 33% instead of 37, and he takes a lot more volume and he's, struggles a little bit more with his efficiency, then I could see his stock dropping a little bit. And so I think he kind of benefits from having the small sample where it's easy if you're a GM to kind of convince yourself, like, if you give this guy a little bit more runway, here's what he can do. And I think he should ride that momentum. And speaking with him, it sounds like that's what he is going to do. And especially if he's going to be a lottery pick, I expect him to be in the draft. But, if for whatever reason his stock starts to drop a little bit, just because it's been rising so dramatically here over the last couple of weeks, maybe then he decides to go back and try to boost it. But from where I sit in terms of how teams that I've talked to at the Combine are looking at him and where he projects to go, I think this is a big opportunity for him to get to the NBA.
Yeah, and you were, boots on the ground at the Combine, and you spoke with Carter Bryant, and we do have a clip. We played it on the show earlier this week, but it's relevant, so I'll replay it here. This is what Carter Bryant had to say in regards to potentially returning for a sophomore year at Arizona.
There's still maybe some indecision for you about whether you're going to return to Arizona, whether you're going to officially declare. Have you decided yet?
Yeah, I've officially declared for the draft.
So he said there he officially declared for the draft. He also told other reporters that he is, quote, completely in on the draft process. And we've discussed that on this show at length. That could mean, a variety of things as to where he is fully committed, but he's leaving the door open for college. And you can argue that either way all day. But you mentioned the runway that he got, or lack of runway that he got at Arizona. And there was good reason for that from a schematic standpoint if you're Tommy Lloyd, right? But a lot of Arizona fans, you might not be familiar with as familiar with a guy like Trey Townsend, but Trey Townsend is the player that Carter Bryant sat behind for a long portion of this season. He was a player, I'll say, much maligned for his play on the court from Arizona fans. A lot of effort, but not really the production that Carter Bryant showed, not really the potential that Carter Bryant showed. You and I were speaking a little bit pre-show about a comparison I've been making throughout this process to a player, VJ Edgecombe, who was given a huge runway at Baylor. Obviously, they had a lot less star power on their team. They had a lot less mouths to feed. So he was able to get that runway and use his freak athleticism that, to his credit, Carter Bryant does not really have. But in your opinion, do you think that Carter Bryant could have solidified himself as a top 10 pick in the NBA draft if he was given more reps at Arizona?
It's possible, but I also think he might be a top 10 pick without that. I think the way that the NBA is trending right now, you want big physical wings who are athletes who can defend and shoot. And he does that already. And I think talking to him, one of the things that kind of surprised me, at least going through the film, I was like, he's a very high floor player, right? Like, he's long, he's going to be a very good defender in the NBA, and he can shoot threes. And that gives you a high floor as a prospect. And maybe that hurts you a little bit in terms of teams wanting to swing for upside and wanting to go for that star potential. I didn't see much of that in the tape just because, as you're saying, he didn't really have that runway. But he seems to think that there is more in his game. I mean, he was comparing himself to Booker, to Tatum, guys like that who really score a lot. And we kind of asked him, like, well, do you have more of that in your game? And he's like, absolutely. So I like the confidence with that. My range for him is more kind of in the like OGN and OB, and that's like a great player. I mean, he just signed a max contract. Yeah. So I think he's going to be a very valuable piece. And that's why I could see him going up. I mean, this draft is not loaded with like superstar players 1 through 14. And so if you're one of these teams, the Bulls, I think, is a good one. The Spurs in the back end of the lottery, the Thunder right outside it, maybe even the Rockets. These are teams that like want to compete now and want to add players that can really contribute today. And I think if you're taking Carter Bryant, he can do that. But I do also kind of start to believe what he's saying about maybe there being a little bit more in there. And if he can get to that, that's like superstar outline, right? Big physical wing, all the stuff we've talked about. But now if you're adding shot creation to that, that's a really valuable player.
That's the one thing that he really didn't show. Like you were saying there at Arizona, he really didn't show off his ball handling too much, his shot creation in the ISO really at all because of the system that Arizona was running. And I think if you ask Arizona fans, people will be split on whether or not Carter Bryant does have that in his game. I think if you asked me if Carter Bryant has it today in his game, and I'm not saying at that super high NBA All-Star level, I'm talking at, of his peers, I don't think that it's in his game right now. I really don't. I think that can get in his game. Like, that's why I was so excited. And I think many Arizona fans were excited for him to come back next year, be the starting small forward, and really have the offense kind of centered around him. is because a lot of us think that he could get there, but is he there right now? I don't know. It's really interesting to hear you say that he's compared himself to Booker and my hero. I'm from St. Louis, Celtics fan, Jason Tatum. So that is really interesting.
Even the way he wears the armband, like he just looks like Tatum. And I think
I know, yeah, no, the influence is there now that you're saying the breadcrumbs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the breadcrumbs. I'm starting to pick up those breadcrumbs there. Let's stay with that pro comp topic there. How do you see Carter Bryant? You kind of spoke to how his skill set might transfer. Are there some names that you can give people at home to think that what Carter Bryant might be in the NBA from a player comp standpoint?
Yeah, the one I wrote down for our draft guide, which again is available to all city diehards, regardless of what city or team you're a fan of, is Toumani Camara, who really came on for the Blazers this year. Big, long wing, elite defensive player who can really start to shoot a little bit. But Camara was a late second-round pick, and he did not shoot the ball very well. And so he really stepped into that and got better. But he's 25 now, I believe. So if you're talking about upside, that's what draft scouts really want to see. They want to see guys who can show you a little bit of that, have shown you a little bit of that, but are still 18, 19 years old on draft night. And that's why I feel like there is some untapped upside with Carter Bryant, but at the very least, I would feel very comfortable taking him because I'm confident in the floor, the defense. And, you were saying maybe him coming back and having the offense geared around him. I do think that in a way that could hurt him just because if he doesn't succeed at a really high level, even if it's just like he scores well, but the efficiency isn't there, I think that hurts him. Whereas like this injury,
that's that risk, right? That's that risk you're talking about.
Exactly. This mystery around what he could be. I do think that's really exciting to teams. So I would love to see what he can turn into and do with the ball in his hands. The other thing I'll say is just covering the Bulls this year, they were very adamant about not just like rolling the ball out and letting Modest Buzelis, the Bulls rookie, just do whatever he wanted with no consequences. They wanted to see him develop every day, playing their style of basketball, being held accountable to their system. And over the course of the year, Bulls fans really disagreed with that. They wanted to see more Modest. But as the year went on, he got a lot better. And one of the common things that Billy Donovan, the Bulls coach, said about that was that he earned everything that he was given. And so I think that not putting him in a position where he just is the freshman who gets all the usage in the world, and he does have to play into that role and watch and learn a little bit, I do think that can be productive as well. I didn't used to really believe in that, but I do think I was swayed a little bit by how the Bulls managed Buzelis this year.
And it's really interesting when you kind of outline the way that the Bulls handled Buzelis. It does kind of remind me of how the way that Tommy Lloyd handled Carter Bryant at Arizona, right?
Exactly.
The tale has been told here in Tucson and in Arizona in general all year about Carter Bryant being a player who, for the most part, could have started at any program in America, right? If he had chosen to do that. Obviously, you have like your Dukes and your players that already have the elite wings that are going to probably go ahead of Carter Bryant in this draft. But for the most part, he could have played it anywhere in the nation, and he chose to play at Arizona, come off the bench behind Trey Townsend and the wings that Arizona had, and play for Tommy Lloyd. So it kind of, to me, signals like his mentality and what he's looking for in a franchise, a program. You spoke to him at the Combine. What were some of your biggest takeaways from not only his on-court performance, but his off-court media availabilities?
Just the maturity, super well-spoken, super introspective kid. They just look younger.
We call him Zen Bryant here because he meditates at center court before games. He does like the cross. I did that on accident. You know what I mean? I was trying to illustrate Carter Bryant, but he does the whole like ohm thing in center court sometimes before big games. So to illustrate your point, he is mature. Please continue. Sorry about that.
No, yeah. I mean, he like answered the questions very well. I think he navigated the media as well as he could have, but just like had a smile on his face, answered the questions, looked people in the eye, was very articulate, but also confident and like expressed that, yeah, there's stuff he can do at a high level right now, but there's a lot more to his game. And I like that. I want to hear players believing in themselves and feeling like, as great as a player as OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges are, he wants to be Jason Tatum. Like you really want to hear that. And so that confidence and self-belief, I think, goes a long way, but also having the awareness to know how to play a role, do what will get you on the court, and do that at a high level because not everybody's capable of that. So again, I feel like he's a high floor player that also has a lot of untapped upside just because one, he's self-aware and he knows what he needs to do in order to get minutes, but two, because he's got that confidence that can maybe lead to doing even more with the ball in his hands.
Love to hear all of that. Someone in our chat, Edgar, or one of our viewers, says Rudy Gay is a good comp in his opinion for Carter Bryant. He also brings up the idea, like you alluded to, of OG Anunoby, kind of one of those more versatile, elite role player wings. And you know, when you talk about the combine and when you talk about players like Carter Bryant who have that super high mystery potential, low or high floor as well, and then they also match it with the mature take on the game off the court, those players tend to rise pretty high in the draft because front offices fall in love with the potential and what they could do of the moldable clay of being teachable, right?
Exactly. And especially when you're comparing that.
Go ahead.
Just especially when you're comparing that to like Colin Murray Boyles, for example, who I really like as a player. He's an elite defender, has drawn a lot of Draymond Green comps, and you can see why just in his frame, but also the way that he sees the game. But he's more of a known commodity, and he has limitations that you've seen. He does not shoot the ball well. He does not shoot it very much. And those are two red flags for me if I'm building a team. Like, you want floor spacing and you want guys that can play away from the ball. And so I'd rather take a shot building around a guy who, yeah, maybe he hasn't shown it quite as much with the ball in his hands yet. But if there's something there and you know for sure that he can fit into a larger team system, that's a really valuable thing.
It is. And we talked about him earlier as potentially being a top 10 pick, regardless of runway or regardless of, you know, what he showed on tape. When you talk about professional mock draft comps for Carter Bryant projections, you kind of spoke to his range. You guys have mocked him to the Spurs. Check out the rest of their mocks, become a diehard, and you can view it in any city that you want, really. So, but when you talk about that range for Carter Bryant, what are some of the best fits that you think Carter Bryant might have in the NBA draft coming up? Obviously, the Spurs, the Bulls, Thunder would be good fits. We've kind of talked about that already. But in your opinion, what's the best fit for Carter Bryant?
I think really the 9 to 15, 16 range is a pretty safe bet for me. Toronto, they're always into these long, versatile wings, but he also adds the shooting element, which is something that they struggle with. The Rockets, another team that just like loaded up Jabari Smith Jr. They've got Cam Whitmore back there who doesn't even play. They've got Amen Thompson. They've got all these guys that are big, long, physical. Tari Eason is another one who actually reminds me a little bit of Carter. So I feel like he could be a fit there. I like Portland for him. That's another team. We mentioned Toumani Camara. You can never have enough of those guys. And if you're going to play with two smaller backcourt players, you need wings that can pick up defensively and guard up and down the lineup. So I can see any of those teams. I think he'd be a great fit with the Bulls. The Hawks are another team, like in between Risa Shea and Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson. That would be a really nasty defensive team. And the Spurs, I mean, you'd love to see him next to a player like Wembanyama. Maybe they get Giannis or something like that, and he's able to slide in at the 3. Like, there's just a lot of versatility with him, and I think that's what makes him such a good fit with any team, no matter really where you're drafting.
I mean, I know you're not watching every Arizona basketball game, Will. Maybe you catch some of the national ones, whatever. That's neither here nor there. But talk about a come up. To be playing between Trey Townsend and Tobe Awaka, who are fine players. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. To go between potentially Victor Wembanyama and Giannis. That is an unbelievable turn of events if that was to ever take place. Before we get you out of here, Will, I just wanted to ask one more question for you. Kind of a bigger picture combine question, because I feel like our viewers would find that valuable as well. What are some other players in that Carter Bryant range that you think maybe people are overrating, that might slip lower than Carter Bryant, or maybe some players that people might be overrating and that Carter Bryant might, actually fall behind those players?
Yeah, I kind of have him grouped with Colin Murray Boyles, who I mentioned, and Noah Senge, who is a French player that played for Ulm, a German team this year. Those are kind of like the big wings of that top 15. There's a guy from Washington State, Cedric Coward, who's really rising up boards. He was thought of as like maybe a second-round pick last week, and then this week he's maybe top 20. So those are kind of like the wings that I kind of package him in with, and I think all those guys are going to be in that same range from 8 to 15, probably a little bit lower for Coward, although I could see him continuing to rise just because that is such a valuable archetype of player in the modern NBA. You need to have those guys to build around your stars, and if you can get him to turn into one, even better.
Well, he is Will Gottlieb. Will, where can they check you out doing all of the great hard work that you do for CHGO and for the Draft Guide in general?
Yep, daily shows. As you guys know, the ALLCity model, CHGO Bulls on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Will_Gottlieb. And we'll be updating the draft guide with new stats, the wingspans, the vertical leaps, all that stuff's coming in. We're going to be tinkering with our big boards and sending out mock drafts weekly. So a lot more to look forward to if you want more Carter Bryant or Bulls or NBA coverage.
He is Will Gottlieb. Like I said, follow him, check out CHGO. And when Carter Bryant gets picked by the Bulls, I'm sure we'll tap back in with you, Will. Thank you for popping on with me today. It has been a pleasure.
Anytime.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Will Gottlieb of CHGO. It was a pleasure to speak with him about Carter Bryant. Learned a lot about how Carter Bryant sees himself, sees his game. Truly impressed to hear some of the comps that he has for himself. Obviously, very high self-belief. You're going to think that you are Jason Tatum or Devin Booker, but the fact that he sees himself taking that trajectory, I think is incredibly encouraging. And we're going to break down more from that interview with Will and talk more Carter Bryant. Still going to talk about my boxing experience this morning. And Arizona softball kicks off the Tucson Regional tonight. And yeah, we're going to take a quick break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast, and we will be right back. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Empire Today is the place to go if you need flooring, if you need that home court advantage. Carter Bryant is losing his home court advantage by leaving McHale, but he's going to need Empire Flooring to reinstate that home floor in his new $1 million mansion. Now he's going to go to the draft. But if you are not in a $1 million mansion, or if you are, you can call Empire Today to get some new flooring in your home, because Empire Today is so much superior, so much better than the big box stores who just want to get you in, get you out. They don't really care about the fit or the function of your floor in your space, the way it looks with your colors, your furniture, your decor. I take myself as a bit of an interior decorator, so it would really bother me if I had mismatching floors with everything else I got going on. No problem with Empire Today. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, so that you know you're talking with the flooring experts. Pick the right flooring and right colors for your space. See how it looks in your house with their visualizer. Get precise measurements taken and have all your questions answered, so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day, because nobody likes to wait. Everyone in this office knows I don't have any patience. I am an impatient person. I don't like to wait in lines, and I don't got no lines with Empire Today. As soon as the next day, you can get yours installed. Schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. PHNX listeners, you guys, our listeners, can get $350. That's $350 off with code PHNX at Empire Today /PHNX for full details. Check out our friends over at Empire Today. And if you are out there and you are like me and you have, some trouble tracking your finances and you just need a helping hand, Monarch Money is there for you to help track all of your finances. I actually do use Monarch Money, and it has helped me out a ton. You can track, you can set goals. You can also see where your money is going. If you have too many subscription services, that's siphoning all your money out of your bank account. If you're like me and you like sports cars and you really look at the price tag later, Monarch Money can help you out with all of your spending goals and needs. I learned that I was spending way too much on sports cars and subscriptions, so I'm trying to cut that back and trying to focus more on saving, because I got a trip coming up in June and trips are expensive, and Monarch Money is helping me with that. So start getting like me by managing your finances to build the life you actually want. Monarch Money makes managing money simple, easy for busy lives. With all your accounts, with all the different things you have going on in your life, it can be hard, and Monarch Money handles all that for you. So it was actually named the Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, and you can get a piece of that and get control of your overall finances with using code PHNX at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year of saving money. So we're saving you money on saving money. The savings just keep stacking with Monarch Money. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com, code PHNX. Welcome back, folks. We are back on the AZ Wildcats podcast. And like I said, that was Will Gottlieb. Thank you to him for stopping on the pod today as our, head of production. Shane Diefenbach calls him Will Gottlieb. So I don't know if I've earned that rep yet, but hopefully we work our way up to that some point in time. And Carter Bryant is working his way up to the NBA draft lottery. And I've been pontificating, thinking to myself, could he make his way into the top 10 of the NBA draft? And as we look at the NBA draft order, obviously Cooper Flagg is a Maverick. Unless Nico Harrison is truly the least deserving man in America of being employed, Cooper Flagg will be a Dallas Maverick. And then you have the Spurs at 2, Sixers at 3. Hornets at 4, Jazz at 5, Wizards at 6, Pelicans at 7, Nets at 8. And I think this would be a reach, but I think now we're at the top of the Carter Bryant range, as we discussed with Gottlieb over there. You know, this range of Raptors, Rockets, Blazers, Bulls, Hawks, Spurs, Thunder, Magic, from, you know, pretty much 9 to 16, any of these teams are in the Carter Bryant sweepstakes, folks. Enter your tickets today. Because when you look at all these teams, Will mentioned it, the Raptors are elite pretty much at player development, in my opinion. I think they have a good record of taking players with high potential, high floors, and helping them reach their max potential. A Fred VanVleet, a Pascal Siakam, for example, and even OG Anunoby as well. So, yeah, I think that is a great landing spot for him up in Canada, the land up north. Then you look at the Rockets. I believe it was Edgar. Oh, this was the Bulls. Sorry. We'll talk about this right now, though. Edgar popped in here and said, the Bulls have too many wings for Carter to join. Bad fit for Carter. And I don't think you're wrong. I also think the Bulls are a team that this is not really their final contending roster, right? Like, this is not the roster that you're working towards if you're the Bulls. So I think Carter, even if you go to the Bulls and they do have wings, it is a chance for you to really show your worth, win those minutes, win those reps from your teammates. And at the end of the year, who knows, maybe you are a lot higher on that depth chart than you were to start. But I do agree with you that potentially there are other fits more beneficial than the Bulls. I don't think the Bulls will be a bad fit, but I think the Blazers might be a better fit for him. I think the Rockets are a better fit for him. And yeah, I mean, you talk about the Spurs at 14. We talked about the possibility of pairing Carter Bryant with Victor Wembanyama. And if you had asked me the odds that Carter Bryant is playing with Victor Wembanyama in next calendar basketball season during Arizona's season, I would have asked what drugs you had and where I could access those drugs, because that sounds like a trip I'm trying to have. And look, if that actually happens, you know how electric that would electrify me. I might die. I might die from the electrocution of Carter Bryant joining the Spurs. And then take it one step further, maybe they actually do go out and get Giannis. And now all of a sudden, Carter Bryant is almost like already in that Aaron Gordon spot, which is kind of crazy to think about. No, I feel like that's the spot that it took Aaron Gordon years and years of grinding and working to get to a spot where you are a pivotal cog on a team trying to make a championship run. And if the Spurs were to go out and make their moves the way that some are dreaming down in San Antonio that they might do, Carter Bryant actually might ironically be the perfect player to pair with those guys due to his mentality, his overall well-rounded skill set, his defensive principles, his length, his I don't think he's as physical of a player as I think some people are giving him credit for. I don't think that he's, soft or anything like that. But I just don't think he's like a physical wing who's going to use his physicality to get a bunch of buckets in the NBA. He might develop into that, but that's not who he is today. And then Edgar also chimes in and says, if Carter goes 14, he'll get packaged with that number 2 to go to the Bucks for Giannis. Damn, you're probably right. Damn. Well, leave that alone, because you are probably right. But how can we live in dreamland for 5 more seconds? Because how fun would that be? I think that'd be incredibly fun. But you are right. And if he does go to the Bucks, there's still an incredible wealth and depth of knowledge and experience on that Bucks roster, even without Giannis. I think there's a ton of good people for Carter Bryant to learn from over there, even though the fit in San Antonio would be drastically better, in my opinion. Exactly, Sam. That's a problem for a later date. For now, I'm dreaming pairing, Carter Bryant in between Giannis and Victor Wembanyama, and I don't care who the guards are, but San Antonio has great young guards too. That is the dream. I'm not going to lie to you. Make sure to leave a like on this video. My grandpa said so now you have to. You deserve to leave a like. Thank you, Grandpa. Leave a like on this video. And like I said earlier, we went to the gym this morning, so don't forget to drink water. Water is incredibly important. You will die without it. Hydrate or dihydrate. That is what I always say. So don't forget to drink your water. And Carter Bryant, if he was good, we talked about the Spurs fit. We talked about the Bulls fit. Talked about the Rockets fit a little bit. I do love him on that Rockets roster, that young, hungry Rockets roster. I think that's an incredible environment for him to land himself in. And again, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Like, at this point, I'm sick of saying it. But this is a player who is clearly willing to take a back seat if it benefits his development. And I think that Carter Bryant being willing to just do his role, like be a star in his role, I think is going to behoove him in the NBA as a professional, because that's what the teams are looking for. They're not looking for players that are coming into the NBA focused on themselves. They're looking for players coming into the NBA focused on their development in relation to winning basketball games. And that is exactly what Carter Bryant is focused on, because he is a dream chaser. And then you look at the possibility of a fit with the team like the Thunder. I know that the Thunder are not short on wings these days. They're not short on lengthy guys who can play defense, go a little two ways there. Not short on any of that. But if you do add Carter Bryant to that Thunder roster, again, we are talking about him being on a championship contending roster, playing deep into the season potentially, even if it is in a more minor role. That's incredible for his professional, personal development. I think it only goes to make him a better basketball player. And one thing that I did learn from Will's interview was that the Hawks might be a better fit than I was giving it credit for. I was kind of poo-pooing the idea of Carter Bryant going number 13 to the Hawks. Didn't love it, didn't like it. But when Will kind of put that in perspective for me, it kind of added a lot of context. And I think I've had a more of a come to Jesus moment with the Atlanta Hawks potentially taking Carter Bryant. We did have a comment about that in the chat as well. About, I believe, Jalen Johnson. Yes. Carter as the other forward with Jalen Johnson would be crazy. And yeah, when you talk about what Carter can do, like I feel like people talk about Carter Bryant's potential from an offensive standpoint, and I don't think that people give enough credit to his potential as a defender. Like when you match his length, his tenacity, his mentality, and I think at times you saw him struggle with defensive rotations at Arizona, which can be taught, that can be focused on, and that can be developed. But I don't think Carter Bryant ever had a problem defending anybody, really. Like I know he struggled at times because he is a freshman, but I really do think his defensive principles are solid. Like I really do think when you project that into the pros, he's not going to be a liability on defense. Again, you're going to have to probably teach him your system. You're going to have to iron out those wrinkles early of his defensive rotation problems, but that can be fixed. I think his length, his lateral movement, his ability to block shots, whether he's going up, going back, I think is incredible. So I do want to give Carter Bryant credit where credit is due on the defensive end. Leave a comment in the chat. Do you think that Carter Bryant's offensive ceiling or defensive ceiling is higher? Because I'm kind of debating it back and forth right now. And I know it's not a exclusive thing. They're not mutually exclusive. They can be, one. He can be an elite two-way player one day if he chooses to do that. But I'm more so just asking the hypothetical of which end ultimately do you think he is better on in the NBA? Because I almost think it might end up being the defensive end in the NBA. Because once he gets there, he's not going to be the guy that is tasked with having the ball in his hands a lot. I think, like Will alluded to, he's going to be one of those guys that's going to have to come in and focus on doing things that contribute to winning in order to make a lot of minutes on any roster that he gets selected to. And I think that Carter Bryant can do that with his defense. I really do. I think he can do it with his shot blocking. I think he can do it with his lateral quickness. And I think that there's an argument to be made that his defensive ceiling might actually end up being higher than his offensive ceiling. Maybe Carter Bryant actually disagrees with me because he said his ceiling is Jason Tatum and Devin Booker. Jason Tatum is quite the defender, but clearly a better offensive player than a defender. Devin Booker, two-way guard as well, but clearly better offensive player than defender. And maybe Jervis is right. Thank you for tuning in today, Jervis. I appreciate you. Carter's offensive ceiling is higher than his defensive ceiling, says Jervis. Again, I can't say that you're wrong for that. I really can't. I think you could argue either way. I think when you look at what he can do offensively, his length, I guess it benefits him on both ends, but his length, he's not quite an elite athlete from a leaping perspective. I know that he registered a very high vertical, but I wouldn't say he's an outlier from an athleticism perspective. And maybe that hurts him on the offensive end in the NBA a little bit, where the guys are bigger, faster, stronger. And I think we didn't really get a chance to see his shot creation, his ball handling last year at Arizona. That was one of the biggest question marks in Carter Bryant's game last year was, can he create shots off the dribble? Can he take guys off the dribble? Can he ISO somebody? Can he, knock down shots consistently when he's asked to do so? yet to be seen. And I think it for sure, you're right, Sam. It is hard to measure a defensive ceiling. You're mostly going off like measurables and athleticism and what they did in college. That is true. But when you look at what he was able to do offensively last year, what he was able to showcase, there was so much left to be desired for the sophomore season. You wanted to see that ball handling. You wanted to see that creation. You overall just wanted to see him have a more prevalent role in the offense to see what he could do with it. Now, yes, that was from a selfish perspective of it would likely help Arizona contend for a national title next year if Carter Bryant were to come back and be a focal point of the offense. He is not doing that. And I think when you project it as a pro, that only helps him, right? The mystery, the question marks, the what could have been, who is this guy really on the court? I think that only helps him, right? And I forget who said it, but 6.5 points is not created equal. Maybe it was Saul. Possibly, I don't know, but every 6.5 points is not created equal. And Carter Bryant, it was Justin Spears, and Carter Bryant certainly had one of the more impactful 6.5 points across the country. It felt like he averaged about 10 last year. Genuinely, I remember the first time I kind of started to track it, and I went back to look at Carter Bryant's numbers, and I was like, "Are we serious? Carter Bryant only averaging 6.5? That feels crazy." But it's not crazy. He really didn't put up double digits that often last year. And you can argue it was because of his role. You can argue it was because of his lack of creation ability. You can go back and forth all day. I personally think it was because of the lack of runway he was given to get the reps to feel comfortable offensively at the college level early on. And I think I keep making the comparison, but when you look at what VJ Edgecombe was able to do at Baylor, given that run, given that time to make mistakes, given that time to utilize his raw skills, turn them into more refined skills, and now he's one of the hottest picks in the draft. And when you talk to guys like Will, who do the draft guides, know these prospects, their skill sets very intimately, he says that he thinks Carter Bryant might be good enough to be a top 10 pick right now, regardless of what he did last year. And I think that kind of goes to justify the way that I've been feeling about Carter Bryant, in the fact that if he was given more runway to show off his skills last year, he would have done well with it, and he would have really cemented himself as a top 10 pick. And we wouldn't be having this discussion of how high, how low could Carter Bryant go in the lottery. It would really be which team needs Carter Bryant the most because he is that desired. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with Carter Bryant in relation to projecting his skill set, right? Because it is hard because he didn't have a lot of tape and he didn't have a ton of explosive games, right? He had some games where he showed huge flashes, some games where he looked really green and like where he looked like he was a freshman. And then Sam Alberts here in the chat says he didn't have the ability to drive off the dribble to create his own shot because we had three guys who loved to do exactly that in Caleb, KJ, and Jaden Bradley. 1000% correct. And when I brought up the comparison, I believe it was Kobe on Twitter who kind of brought up the idea of, Baylor and VJ Edgecombe, their roster did not look the same way Arizona's did. They didn't have the same needs on offense. They needed VJ Edgecombe to do what he was doing to contend in the Big 12 conference. Arizona didn't have that. Arizona had players that they expected to be more ball dominant, to contribute more to the offense than a Carter Bryant. And you're right. So the 3-and-D role was then thrust upon him. And maybe, Sam, that is why the mock experts are talking to him and he's saying, I feel like I'm more of a Jason Tatum, Devin Booker than a Rudy Gay, OG Anunoby. You know what I mean? Maybe that's why he feels that way. And maybe ultimately this was the most beneficial thing for his game, was to come in and not be the guy handling the ball that often. If he feels like he already has it in his game, developing that 3-and-D role, which is so valuable in the NBA right now, I think really did help him actually last year maybe in the end, I think, but addressing your comment further about didn't have the ability to drive off the dribble to create his own shot because we had three guys who love to do exactly that. That's kind of what I was alluding to earlier with the roster fit, right? They just didn't need Carter Bryant to showcase his skill set in that way. It would have been great if he did, but they didn't need it to contend. And the scheme was not predicated on it. If he got it in the flow of the offense, great. If not, 3-and-D. And I think that fit him very well last year because he did look green in parts. And I think that he is a player who, I keep talking about risk, but if you did give him more runway, maybe he does look green and maybe I'm wrong. Right. But yeah. And I felt the same way, Sam. It was incredibly interesting to hear Carter Bryant say that about himself. Not because I think he's wrong, not because I think he's out of the sandbox for saying it. Like it was just interesting to hear him view himself that way, because that's not how we saw him last year on the court. And not to say that it isn't in his game like we were talking about, but when you talk about guys like Devin Booker and Jason Tatum, you've seen the creation off the dribble early. It was there. It was unavoidable. You know what I mean? More so Tatum than Booker, I think, from like a facilitation standpoint. Like Tatum had a lot more to develop in that game, but because he was not a guard early. But like, yeah, it was very interesting to hear Carter say that. Kind of like it made me raise my eyebrows genuinely, because I think like what is there in Carter's game that he thinks that truly was never showed at Arizona last year, and I'm excited to see it in the pros now. Because if Carter Bryant is really right and he is really working himself up to be one of those far above average scorers in the NBA, that would really interest me, because his defensive principles are so good. He has shown he can facilitate his success within an offensive flow he doesn't need to be focused on to succeed. I think that this is a player, and we talked about it with Will, who a lot of front offices are likely already or going to fall in love with. His mentality, his skill set, his potential, his measurables are all on point. And when you combine those three things, or four things, can't count. When you combine those four things, you get a guy who's going to raise in this draft. You have a guy like Ace Bailey, who I think he was trying to say something positive about himself, but it kind of ended up, if you flip it, I don't know. He was saying like, people take bad shots. I practice bad shots, so they're actually good shots, was kind of his message. I don't know if that's where you want to go. Nefarious Max says, dude is overhyped. And also, this is also part of the Carter Bryant narrative, right? Of like, if you go on Twitter and search Carter Bryant, but not in latest, you'll see a lot of NBA fans being like, we had an awful year last year, one of the worst years I've seen from my team, and we're walking out of it with Carter Bryant. And like, that's their attitude towards it. Maybe that's Nefarious Mex's, I think I said Max, sorry. Nefarious Mex's attitude towards it as well. But that is the B-side of being like a high potential player. People haven't seen it, and some people have to see it to believe it. And so, yeah, there are a lot of people out there outside of our Arizona circles as well that think Carter Bryant has been overhyped. They're not too excited to have him on their squad. I think I've specifically seen like actually, I think I've specifically seen Bulls fans, ironically, doing this on Twitter, because you are, if you're the Bulls, you are just outside that top 10 at 12, and you're hoping maybe a true top 10 guy falls to you at 12 and you feel good about it. I think the front office would feel good about Carter Bryant going to their team. But when you look at what fans expect and how fans interpret the draft, I do think that Carter Bryant would have some, we'll say haters, some doubters. I think Carter Bryant's going to have a lot of doubters, depending upon what team he gets drafted to in relation to the season that they had last year, the season they hope to have the year after. I totally understand it. And yeah, this is kind of what I'm getting at, Sam, right? Like some Suns fans felt that same way when they took Cam Johnson at 14. You just don't know. You just don't know until you see it on the court. And so some people can more easily buy in to the tape, to the potential, to the measurables, to the things they say in the media. I think that some people are more likely to buy in on that with the guy they haven't seen the tape on. And some people, like I said, are more, you got to show me. I'm from Missouri. You got to show me. You know what I mean? And so Edgar says Carter's got it, though. And that was in response to his comment that said Bulls aren't good evaluators of talent, obviously, since they have a top 10 pick. And yeah, the Bulls have been struggling in the drafts pretty much for a long time now, to my understanding of it. One of the we'll just say not one of the best run organizations in basketball, I believe, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe our Suns crew would correct me on that. But I do feel like the Bulls would not be the most exciting team for Carter Bryant to go to, simply because I don't have the most confidence in their current infrastructure. It was encouraging to hear what Will had to say in relation to the Bulls, though. So I am slowly being coerced in the other way. But ultimately, my gut does tell me that the Bulls would not be the best place for Carter Bryant to go. Dalen Terry is there, though. That'd be another Wildcat duo. I feel like it's becoming a thing where if you look at around the league and look at these teams, where the Wildcats are in the NBA, they're always in pairs. They just travel in pairs. And I think maybe Dalen Terry going to the Bulls, it was only a matter of time before we had another Wildcat on the Bulls. Pacers, you got Mathurin, McConnell. Nuggets, you got Gordon, Najee. I just feel like this is the way. This is the way. Dalen Terry's on his own in Chicago. You got to pair him up with another Tucson Wildcat. And Nefarious Mex has a response to his earlier comment calling Carter Bryant overrated. He explains, we'll see, but he can't create his own shot and can't dribble. Plus, he didn't do anything when he went up against Duke. And see, I think these are like the valid arguments that I'm seeing. So I will say, like, these are valid criticisms of Carter Bryant's game that Nefarious is bringing up here. The people on Twitter, they're just looking at Carter Bryant's 6.5 points and saying, we got 6.5 points at 9 in the draft. No, get it out. But yeah, no, Nefarious, these are legitimate criticisms. When you talk about what Arizona fans, like I was saying earlier in the show, what Arizona fans wanted to see from him next year, it was the shot creation. It was the dribbling ability. It was the ISO ball on offense. You wanted to see what he can do, how he can get by guys. Like, can he get by guys? You know what I mean? That has yet to be seen. And so, yeah, those are all valid criticisms. The Duke game, let me pull up the stats here from that Duke game, just so I can have them here in front of me. But yeah, no, he did struggle in the Duke games. March 27th. Damn, this is painful. I'm not gonna lie to you, chat. This hurt. I didn't think this would hurt that bad. I don't like looking this stat up. Carter Bryant, 26 minutes, 2 for 10 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3. He had 3 rebounds, no assists, 2 steals on 8 points. Definitely not his best game. And when you look at who you're gonna go up against in the NBA, 3 of those guys next year are coming from Duke, and a whole lot more of them from Duke are already in the league. So if you're looking for holes to poke in Carter Bryant's game, I think Nefarious has hit on pretty much every single one that are the prevailing narratives for the critics of Carter Bryant. Can't dribble, can't create, and struggled against elite competition. I think that Carter Bryant, if you look at, I'm honestly, I can't defend the Duke performance because, you know what I mean? But I can defend the shot creation and I can defend the dribbling. I think that it's weird to ask a player to play off the ball so often, and then for them to be able to show off their on the ball stuff. I think it's difficult to have that switch in the middle of a game. Again, no excuse, but I do think that he has the potential to develop the dribble stuff. I'm not saying he's going to be Jamal Crawford, but I do think he could develop into a serviceable ball handler at his position. And in terms of shot creation, I like his ability in the NBA to create his shot. And I don't think that, again, I'm not saying he's going to be out here, hot sauce dribbling dudes, but I think the ability to hit like a mid-range pull-up, I think that's going to be in his game. The ability to hit like a sidestep pull-up, I think that's going to be in his game. And now I'm talking about from the mid-range, not from 3. Sidestep pull-up 3, Carter Bryant would be insane. But I do think like the mid-range game is going to be where you see him start to learn his shot creation. He's not the outside shooter. That it's crazy that I have to compare Carter Bryant to Jason Tatum and Devin Booker because that's who he compares himself to. But he's not the outside shooter that those guys are right now. He has a nice stroke, a pretty stroke, one you can work on and develop into a more consistent stroke from 3 beyond the arc, but he is not an elite shooter right now. So I am interested to see where Carter Bryant goes in this draft, how he can develop in this draft. And I appreciate Nefarious Mex's comment because I think it did kind of add some well-roundedness to this conversation about Carter Bryant as well. More comments. Jazz moved back to take him, get him and Laurie together. Wow. So now you're picking a partner here. You're saying, do we send him to Chicago, pair him with Dalen Terry, or do we send him to Utah to pair him with Lauri Markkanen? Hell of a choice there. I think I'd prefer to live in Chicago from a personal level. Playing basketball, roster, franchise, all that stuff, probably Utah. But that's neither here nor there. And that has been our Carter Bryant conversation. And if you have any more questions, comments, takes, predictions about Carter Bryant, please leave them in the chat. If you have not already, please leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel. We are hunting for 50,000 subscribers. We just hit 40. So we're on our way up slowly and excited to see where this channel can go. Please become a diehard. Join our Discord. Come talk with me. Come talk with Damon every day. You can exclusively chat with us. You can chat with Derek. You can chat with whoever you want in the Discord from PHNX only if you become a diehard. So become a diehard today. You can get additional, percentages off on our merchandise as well. We're running a sale right now. So check out our comments for our description for the sale link and all that good stuff. Go get some merch. Rep the Wildcats. Rep PHNX. Rep the AZ Wildcats podcast for your boy Kevo Post. And Rick says no mountains in Chicago, Utah all the way. So Rick is a big mountain guy. Just learned that. I should have known from the photo. Beautiful photo with a beautiful landscape in there as well. I don't know if that's you or whatnot, but yeah, no, mountains are beautiful. I just think, doesn't everything like close in Utah at like 6 p.m.? You know what I mean? Like I'd be rolling into bed cold sober at like 8 p.m. and maybe that'd be a healthier life. Maybe it'd be a safer life, as Rick says. But I'm not sure if that's my game. You know what I mean? No, I do love Utah. I want to visit one day. I've never been. So I do want to go like hike some mountains and see some sights. It's beautiful nature up there, but don't know if I could live there. And I will say the mountains in Arizona and the mountains in Tucson specifically, I truly think are beautiful. And I think they're so underrated from people that actually live in the state. They don't talk about the scenery enough of just like the everyday drive around, just the everyday walk around. You're looking around, beautiful scenery everywhere. And I will say, having lived in Phoenix for the better part of a year now, Tucson just has such better scenery. It's ridiculous. Like I live in an apartment complex currently, and they're doing construction across the street. And I walk my dog on this road every day, and I could view the mountains from between these two buildings. And it was a beautiful shot. I would walk my dog, look at the mountains, and just think about life, be grateful for things. The sun's shining on me. You know what I mean? They're erecting a building in that exact view shot, in the exact view line. I can't see anything anymore except for whatever it's going to be, whether it's like a dentist office or a condo. I don't know. I don't care. Get it out of here. Let me see my mountains. And I rest my case. You're right, Edgar. Not like Carter is old enough to go out and do anything anyway. But counterpoint, would he be the first NBA player to go out and do stuff when he's not supposed to? I don't think so. Would he be the first teenager to go out and do stuff when he's not supposed to? I don't think so. But yeah, it would probably be better. It would behoove him and his lifestyle to probably go to Utah with Lori as opposed to Chicago with Dalen. That's story for another podcast. But I want to wrap up this show by talking about fighting my coworkers, beating the hell out of them. That's what I want to talk about, because today, folks, PHNX, we had an all staff meeting at Jabs in Chandler, the boxing gym. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. Haley was our coach. She was awesome. Had everybody pumped up. We did this weird musical finisher to the Cupid Shuffle. It about killed everybody in the office, I think. I don't think anyone's ever going to play the Cupid Shuffle from PHNX ever again. So thank you, Haley, for the workout this morning. And these are my stats. I just wanted to let y'all know that if y'all pull up, ain't nothing sweet. You see it, 35-minute workout. How many KOs? Damn near 500. Yeah, 100 Kevins versus one gorilla. All I need is one knockout. I got damn near 500 today. 935 punches, average power of 20 Gs. Now, I will say the speed, unbelievable. Legitimately, I'm fighting like a featherweight, chat. I think Shane's was like 20. I think Derek's was like 25. I'm out here, hum. You know what I mean? It was unbelievable. I had a great time at Jabs. I was a little worried because I was saying, whoa, Max, what are we? He says, the streets are saying Kev got the smacketh down from Adman Simpson. Max, never get in this chat and try to play me ever again. Because you know what actually happened? Max was in there getting bullied the whole time. Everyone's saying, you know what? I can't wait can we spar with Max? Everyone just wants to spar with Max. Nobody wanted to spar with me. Nobody wanted to spar with Eric. Nobody wanted to spar with Shane. Nobody got beef in this office except for Max. Max had beef with everybody. Everybody wants to beat up on Max. And, Haley and Jabs, that's not what they do over there. It's about fitness. It's about workouts through music and through boxing. So they wouldn't let us beat up on Max as many times as we asked. So we appreciate them for that. But ain't no way I got the smacketh down from the Adman Simpson. The Adman Simpson would have got the smacketh down from everybody in there and have everybody saying LA Knight. Yeah. Sam, got my money on Kev. That's why you're in this chat. And if you want to go Hayes Max, I think he shows up to Rising like once every 6 months. So check in on the Rising podcast. Maybe Max will show up, and maybe you could get some jabs in on Max. But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Jabs Boxing Gym in Chandler. They have locations across the valley, I believe. So if you're looking for a great time, a quick hour of your life to fly by, but you get the endorphins flowing, you get to feel strong, you get to feel empowered. And honestly, it built a great sense of community. We had our brief little all staff meeting after, and I cannot be more thankful to work with the people that I do work with, especially Derek. We're going to be doing a post game tonight for Diamondbacks. And yeah, it was incredible time. Got to boom, boom, boom. And I will say, chat, I know Sam said he had my money on, or he has his money on me. I might be putting my money on me too after this. I'm not really one to big up my own fighting skills. Never really been in a scrap. I'll say that first right here. But I was doing my little bing, 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 bing. You know what I mean? Whatever the hell I was supposed to be doing. I think it was like a little cross, hook, burpee. Yeah, it was a cross, hook, something burpee. And I was like, oh God. So we're doing that. And I'm hitting my hooks, you know, flowing from the hips. And Haley comes over, our instructor, and goes, have you ever boxed before? Oh, instantly, ego just through the roof. And I'm saying, nah, never boxed. I took like a kickboxing class for a month. You know what I mean? She's like, well, you got it down. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, I do got it down. And I'm ready to throw down with anybody in this office at any time. So let's just go to jabs. If Max has beef, Eric got beef, Totri, you know, he wants some beef. Damon, he's been leaving me a lot lately. Him and I might have beef. We're going to figure it out at jabs with a good boxing workout. Jervis says, I love boxing. We got title boxing out here in Dallas that I take. If you came out here to Phoenix, to Chandler, you could get in with jabs. Because we had a great time with them today as well. So make sure to check out Jabs Boxing in Chandler. Hell of a time. And before we get out of here, I wanted to encourage folks to show some damn love to Arizona Diamond sports right now. Baseball struggling, needs your support. Lost to Houston. Last two games of this road series, last series of the year in the regular season, are now instantly must wins. You go from looking like you're going to host to now you're a bubble team. And it is, I am not, you guys know me, I am not the panic button guy. That is my usual co-host, Damon Dog. I will say though, like, there's a lot of criticism out there year over year, the narrative of Chip Hale having great regular seasons and then faltering when it matters most. That can't happen again. And I think that you need to prove that you're on the right direction still. And that last game was just a mirage by going out and finishing off Houston with 2 straight dominant victories. I think that would do a lot for the confidence of Arizona fans going into postseason. But let's talk about a team on the diamond that is absolutely rolling and looking to make their way to the Women's College World Series here very shortly. The Arizona Wildcats softball team will face off against the Santa Clara Broncos. And you have a team with immense history, one of the pillars of the sport, Arizona softball, going up against Santa Clara, this is their first ever tournament. Polar opposite here, folks. You have, I think this is Arizona's 37th tournament postseason appearance, and this is the Santa Clara Broncos' first. So yeah, that is interesting little stat. I think I saw that from AZ Desert Swarm this morning, and I thought that was crazy. But yeah, Arizona, this should be something that they should go out and handle. I don't think that Arizona should have any problems with Santa Clara. Now, obviously, Santa Clara made the tournament. They are a fine team, but Arizona, if they are who we think they are, should go out and handle this. And it's about 12:59. You know what that means. AZ Cash G Super Chat. AZ Cash G Super Chat. Who says, hello, Kevo. Hitting the road, heading to Tucson, going to see those awesome mountains and get some food. Get some Mexican food for me. Have some enchiladas. The Valley is nice, but definitely miss Tucson. Right? Like, the Valley is fine. Like, I know there's a lot of beef, and hey, safe space. Damon's not here. I have the floor. ISO. The Phoenix Tucson back and forth is very real. People, they talk about this a lot, but like, ultimately Phoenix is fine. It's fine. But Tucson, for like living, dramatically better, right? I lived in Tucson for 6 years, 5.5, whatever it was. I've lived in Phoenix for the better part of a year. I hope to continue to live here, doing my job here for you guys. And the lifestyle in Tucson is just it's way different. And the experience, the vibes, the overall feel of the city is way different. I think Tucson really feels more like a community, and I think Phoenix feels more like a city. And I think that is the big difference there between the two places. Like Phoenix, you got that big metro vibe, people moving fast, don't really, you know what I mean, doing your own thing. I think Tucson is much more of a community, and for that, I will forever love Tucson. City of gastronomy, some of the best food in the world. You can say that because it's a city of gastronomy. And yeah, you can't take that from Tucson. So stand up for Tucson. Tell someone about, Tucson this weekend. Make sure to drink some water. Go boxing. Go get some punches in somewhere. Do your thing. Yeah, have a great weekend, folks. It's been a wonderful week with each and every one of you. I love doing these solo shows for you guys. I love that you guys want to watch me talk because that's incredible. I can't believe this is my job. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys in this chat from the very bottom of my heart. It means the world that you guys tuned in today to watch me talk with Will Gottlieb, listen to me talk about Carter Bryant a little bit, and also talk about how I could whoop my coworkers if I needed to. And yeah, this has been the AZ Wildcats podcast this week. I have been your host, Kevo Post. You can find me on Twitter at the same moniker, KEVOPOSTS. You can find our account at PHNX_Wildcats. Damon will be back on Monday. The return of the dog on Monday. Excited for that. Excited to talk Arizona softball. Hopefully getting some dubs this weekend. Leave a like, drink some water, subscribe to the channel. And as always, folks, bear down and go Cats. Max, don't ever talk to me like that ever again.
We all silly like the mayor.